Hi, I'm Megan Finnerty of USA Today. I'm the founder and director of the Storytellers Project, and I want to say welcome to the first online show of 2021. It fills my heart with joy to welcome you guys into our new virtual season. We so appreciate you taking the chance on live storytelling and sharing your evening with us. Tonight, we're joining Humana back as our national presenting sponsor. Thank you so much. And 5 Americans from across the nation to create community. Since 2016, the Storytellers Project has brought more than 100 shows each year to communities across the country, except for last year, which you guys know was mostly online. You know also, though, that our shows are going to stay indoors, canceled because of the pandemic. And while it feels unsafe to be gathered together in theaters and a lot of other places, we know it feels necessary to be together online. So we have handpicked incredible storytellers, inspiring people, truly fascinating Americans to share stories with you tonight about new beginnings for the new year. We've got fresh starts of all kinds, and we are excited to introduce you to our storytellers. Are you guys ready to meet them? Amy Wilbourne of Milwaukee, Wisconsin is here tonight. Dorothy McElroy and Wyatt Kauth, also of Milwaukee. Abu Chowdhury of Lafayette, Louisiana. Maggie Downs is here from Palm Springs, California. And MJ Kang of Venice, California is here. Thank you guys so much for all being here. Hi. Tonight is not a TED Talk. It's not Toastmasters. Hi, MJ. Sorry about that. Sorry. Give me a second. All right. Here's Maggie. Hi. It's not a how-to talk or an inspirational speech. Instead, we're here to visit with one another. Like, see how that was like kind of casual? We were just chatting. It's no big deal. We're not going to get stressed out about things. Storytelling is predicated on visiting, and visiting is where you open your heart to receive another person that you want to feel closer to. And that is truly how community connecting and community change happens. It's the point of our entire program. We believe that community connection matters most in times of uncertainty. And we're really here to create empathy, that connection, that understanding. Some of our storytellers are going to be super polished and professional. Some are going to be casual and conversational. We want you to know we have not coached them on how to be themselves. That's part of oral storytelling. Instead, we ask you to receive them in the spirit in which they're intended. And so with that, I really am excited to welcome up Maggie Downs to open our show.
Oh. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. So my story begins almost exactly 10 years ago. It's New Year's Eve, 2010, and I'm traveling alone in Cairo, Egypt. And my hostel had been overbooked for the holiday, so I'm being kicked out and I have nowhere else to stay. So I'm standing on the street outside trying to figure out my next move. And I mean that very literally, because for the life of me, I can't figure out how to cross the street, and everything I need is on the other side. And if you've never been to Cairo before, the traffic is madness. It's complete chaos. And the ancient roads are squeezed with millions of cars and buses and bicycles and people on foot, and there are no traffic lights. It's like when a pipe bursts and the water just starts shooting out and you can't make it stop or slow down. And just then a man touches my arm. So I look over at him and he's about my height, and he's bald and wearing this long, loose jalabaya, this robe. And he kind of looks like an upside down light bulb. And he says to me, "There's a trick." And I say, "Oh yeah? Please tell me." And he says, "Close your eyes and pray to Allah." And then he kind of giggles and he motions for me to follow him. And I do. I follow this man into moving traffic. And it's almost biblical, the way the traffic parts for us. And we slide through the street. And once we're on the other side, we get to talking. The man's name is Rami. And when I tell him my situation, Rami invites me to stay with his family in Giza. And that sounds really good, because at this point, I've been backpacking solo for 6 months on a very small budget, staying at like hostel dorms and sometimes sleeping at bus stations and on long haul trains. So staying at an actual house with a real family sounds really appealing. And so just like with the traffic, I go with the flow. And we travel to his house in Giza, and I meet Rami's family, but we don't speak the same language, so communication is a little difficult. And Rami's mother presses pita bread into my hand, and it's warm, and instantly I feel cared for in a way that I haven't in a very long time. And what Rami's family doesn't know is that on the other side of the world, back home in Ohio, my own mom is dying. And she had been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease almost a decade earlier, and her decline was rapid. And she wasn't the kind of person who would have wanted me to sit by her side and watch her decline. My mom placed a lot of importance on appearance, and she always wanted to be perfect. Like, she was the person who would wake up early to do her hair and always wore Revlon poppy silk red lipstick, even if it was just to drive me to school. And as she approached the final stages of the disease, I felt like I was stuck in this maze, just wandering around, and I couldn't find a way out. But I knew there were all these things that my mom wanted to do with her life and places she wanted to go. And she put those things off to raise a family. And she thought there would be time, but there wasn't. So I realized that by muddling around in my own grief, I was doing the same thing that my mom had done. I was putting things off, and I wasn't actively living. So I imagined what my mom would want for me and what she would do if she had another chance. And that's exactly what I did. I sold all of my things, and I quit my job, and I set out to backpack around the world to complete my mom's bucket list. I backpacked for 3 months in South America, and then 3 months in Africa, which brought me to Egypt and then to Rami's house. And that day that I met Rami, my dad had just emailed me to say that my mom had been moved into hospice care. And the thing about Alzheimer's is that it makes a person's body forget everything, even the most basic systems. And so my mom's body was at a point where she no longer remembered how to swallow, which meant she wasn't receiving any sustenance, and it wouldn't be long before she starved. And I thought this whole time that I had been traveling to this place of closure, but with my mom's death imminent, it felt like that chaotic road in Cairo all over again. Like, I just didn't know how to navigate this. But that night at Rami's, the entire family comes together, and we sleep together on the living room floor, and we don't have beds. We just have these wool blankets that we wrap around our bodies like burritos. But that night, there are also mosquitoes, swarms of them, and they're flying into my blanket, and I wrap the wool tight around my face. And at one point, I'm even inhaling insects. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm swollen and I'm covered with bites. Rami's sister Raina suggests to me that I take a shower, and that sounds magical because it had been months since I had had a real shower. And so I immediately imagine like hot water on my sore skin and lather and water streaming all over my face and shoulders and cleansing me. And so Raina tells me to be patient. The shower will be ready soon. And by this time, the rest of the family has gone. They're out running errands. Raina leaves the room, and I wait alone. And after a while, she comes and she leads me by the hand into the bathroom. And in the bathroom, there's a toilet and there's a bathtub. But the bathtub is full of like plastic chairs and dishes and boxes, and I don't see a shower. Stand here, Raina says, and she positions me near the toilet. And I notice the floor is tile, and it's kind of tilted toward a drain by the toilet. And Raina leaves, and she comes back hoisting this big metal pot of water. And she puts the pot on the floor, shuts the door, and instructs me to remove all of my clothes. But shower, I say? Here is shower. And she balances on top of the toilet seat, and she has this measuring cup or like a ladle with a long handle. And I do what she tells me. I take off my clothes, and one cup at a time, she pours water on my head, and it's almost boiling and my flesh stings. And then she starts to sing in Arabic, and it's a really beautiful song as she puts water on my body. My mom is dying, I tell her. Everybody dies, Raina says. And that's true. But not everybody is my mom. And I'm so vulnerable in this moment, naked and being cared for by this girl I barely know. And all I want in the whole world is for my mom to hold me again. And Raina dribbles shampoo on my head, and she combs her fingers through my hair. And she runs this bar of perfumed soap over my skin and rubs me until it lathers. And then she rinses me until I'm pink. And after that shower, I towel off and I get dressed. And by now, the rest of the family has returned to the house. And I hear a lot of commotion in the kitchen, like pots and pans and the thud of a knife against a cutting board and like the scrape of a mortar and pestle. And then it's time to eat, but there's no table. Instead, we spread newspapers out on the floor, and the entire family sits in a circle. And they bring out all of these platters. There's white rice and fava beans and stewed greens and cucumber salad and bread. And then in the center of it all is this thick ball of meat. And it's hot and like hissing with oil and juices. And I realize I've never told them that I'm a vegetarian. So I politely nibble around the meat. And I tell them I'm not very hungry. And I try to offer it to others. But this is New Year's, and it's a new beginning and a special day. And this family is so generous, and I'm their guest. It's special for you, Rami says. And he tells me that the family had their uncle's camel slaughtered recently, and they saved the liver for me as a delicacy. And I can't help but think of my own mom in this moment. And as this family is nourishing me and offering me sustenance, I can decide whether or not to accept the food. But my mom no longer has that choice. And so I take the camel, and everyone in Rami's family is watching me. And I take a bite and I close my eyes as I chew. And the camel tastes very dark and heavy, and it tastes like iron, and it tastes like blood, but it also tastes like a gift. Thank you.
Maggie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I so appreciate your story. It's so intense, and you paint such vivid pictures. I felt like so often I was like in the room with you, at the table with you, meeting these people with you. And that is, like you mentioned earlier, such a gift in a time when we can't do any traveling. Mm-hmm. Also, you mentioned this is from your book. So I know like storytellers, we're not like selling anything here, but it's a big deal. Maggie's book was published during a pandemic. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's not the ideal time to publish a book, but my book came out just as lockdown was starting, and it's called Braver Than You Think: Around the World on the Trip of My Mother's Lifetime. And it's about this backpacking trip and how I traveled for 1 year and went to these places, and also kind of reckoned with my own mortality. And, and I met the most generous people in the world.
Awesome. Maggie, thank you so much for introducing us to your mom, introducing us to people who were kind to you, and reminding us of the power of a shared meal.
Yes.
It's something I know it's something I think a lot of us look forward to again.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that again. Thank you so much for letting me share my story.
Awesome. Thank you. Now it's our time to take a moment to thank somebody else, or really someone else, so a whole group of people. You guys know that Humana sponsors the Storytellers Project nationally during the outside times, and now virtually. We are genuinely grateful because it literally helps pay for our journalism. Humana believes that sharing stories and connecting as humans online or in person makes for healthy people, healthy communities. And we all know, listen, we need these connections now more than ever, to health, to each other. As the COVID-19 situation continues to change, and I know it's changing in all of our communities all the time, Humana remains committed to the health, safety, and well-being of you, our viewers, and all of the people in your community. And they're not just saying that. Like, you don't have to like have Humana as your healthcare support team, as your insurance. Instead, if you just go to humana.com, they have tons of research and suggestions and facts and ideas about how you can stay emotionally connected during coronavirus, ways that you can really like be healthy and safe now, both physically and emotionally. Also, you can learn just like what are they doing as a giant company in America to connect you to better health in your community. So we really mean it when we say thank you. Their resources help power our journalism, and they help make nights like this possible. So with that, thanks, Humana. Now I am truly excited to welcome up our next storytellers. Dorothy and Wyatt are coming to us together for what is really special when parents and children tell together. So if you guys want to unmute real quick, we are excited to have you share a story. Take it away.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Wyatt, and our story begins 7 years ago on March 8th, 2013, when I was 7 years old. That's the day my dad died. The nurse helped me ink up his hand to put on a t-shirt and on a poem, and it took me 6 hours to say goodbye to him. That day, I finally understood an important lesson that my parents were teaching me. You always say, I love you before you go to bed and before you leave that person that you care about, because you never know the last time you'll see that person. My dad, Dennis, was a really compassionate person. He loved fishing. He loved hunting. He loved helping others. He was one of the original artists for Dungeons and Dragons, and he loved archery, and that's something that me and him did together. Now who would I shoot with?
This was a pivotal point in our lives. This is the first time Wyatt was exposed to death, and I had to make sure that it was a positive experience for him. And also, you don't get a second chance at that. So I really wanted to make sure that he had all the time in the world that he had, and he did. And that day was going to define us, or we were going to be defined by death, or we were going to be torn apart by grief. And we decided we wanted to be defined. Just because Dennis died does not mean that our love for him or our relationship died with him. Because contrary to what philosophers say, death ends a life, but it does not end a relationship. And I needed an invisible connection for Wyatt to hold on to his dad. And that invisible connection was a bowstring. And archery became our lifeline. It was our new normal. It was our new fresh start. When I was 18, I lost my mom. Shortly after that, I lost my grandmother. And it wasn't long after that I lost my sister. And I was a caregiver for my husband for 8 years before he died. And while I was taking care of him, I was unpacking my grief from all those other losses that I had. And actually, inevitably, getting ready for my next one. It was, during these last 7 years, I've had to reinvent myself. And I have received the certifications of a Level 2 USA Archery instructor, a grief support specialist, and also an end-of-life doula. And I've also gone to college and graduated that as well. And all I could think about this the whole time is the actress Ruth Gordon, who said, beginnings, always have new beginnings in your life.
A week after my dad died, I was sitting at home on the couch, and Mom asked me what I wanted to do that day. I said, just sit on the couch and talk to Dad. What I meant was sit on the couch and talk to the dragon necklace that my mom gave me with his ashes in it. But she had other ideas, so she grabbed our bows and we headed to a local archery club. It had been a while since I shot, so I was pretty rusty, but I got better with time. Mom didn't, because she stunk. And I was shooting so well that one of the members there came up to me and asked, "Hey, how are you shooting so good?" And I held up my necklace and said, "This is my dad, Dennis. He died a week ago. He's guiding my arrows." And he gave me a weird look, so that's when Mom took over. But about a week after that encounter, I had gone to a grief camp, and there they asked me if I could have one holiday in honor of my father, what would it be? And I came up with the dragon shoot, where thousands of archers all around the world shoot at paper dragon targets in honor of my father. And that was my big creation. But all the other kids said that it was just a dream, and everybody knows that dreams don't come true. But Mom didn't really think so. She asked questions about it. She was intrigued by it, and she thought it was serious.
Well, it was serious, and of course I would take you serious, because your dad had died, your whole world had fallen apart, and I'm not going to let someone tell you that your dreams are not going to not come together either. The way that we healed, and Wyatt was healing, is by archery and by honoring his dad. So it made total sense. I mean, it's pretty cool, because who wouldn't want to slay a dragon, right? There's so many dragons out there anyways. So on March 8th, 2014, we had the first Dennis Kauth Memorial Dragon Shoot. We held it at our archery club in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We had 116 archers there, and we raised $800 for Wyatt's grief camp. And we posted pictures that night and told our story on social media. And we really we had an amazing day. You know, we came back to who we were, finally. It took a year, but we came back to who we were. And we woke up the next morning, and it was just, wow. We didn't expect the outcome that we had. So let's fast forward, and through the last 7 years that we've done this, we've grown from 1 state to 40 states. We're in 67 countries, and we have raised about $85,000 for families around the United States, for children and families who have had lost a parent, a child, or are fighting serious illness. And it's been an incredible journey. Sometimes when you are, sometimes when you're not sure what you're doing and you're taking a new path, you're pushing to something else. And this has taken on a larger purpose than we've ever expected it to be.
Are you talking about the fact that we're now a 501c3 nonprofit, or about the Dragon Slayer kids?
Both of those.
Okay. So about a year back, me and my mom were on a car ride back from Dragon Shoot. And in the car, I was curious if kids needed that support that they would get at a Dragon Shoot, but they can't go to one. What can we do about that? So I figured, why not bring the Dragon Shoot to them with mini Dragon Shoots, which are Dragon Slayer kids.
Actually, that was a really good idea that I had.
Nope.
No.
Absolutely not. That was mine.
Mm-hmm.
So here's our next idea. Dragon Slayer kits. We give these out for free to schools and talk about grief, trauma, and bereavement. And we help kids with that. It's still a dream. And to think that so many people want to help me with that and help honor my dad with that is sometimes a little much, but in a good way. With all the talk about what's wrong, how about we focus on what's right?
And there are so many dragons out there. Ours is grief. My personal one right now is this one being a teenager.
Yeah, thanks.
Who else? I'm sure others out there can.
Cool.
All right. So anyways, seriously, dragons can take any shape and form. It can be disease. It can be trauma. It can be separation from somebody. And grief isn't just about death. Grief has so many different things that's attached to it. The important thing we need to remember is we can all be dragon slayers, regardless of where we are and where everyone else is. And we can always hold that metaphorical bow for somebody else who can't. And that's the important thing. Just trying to help somebody else besides ourselves as well. 7 years ago, when I was holding my son and watching Dennis take his last breath, we were holding in ours. It was, the whole feeling was like we were a windshield that had just gone through a major car crash, and all our pieces were just broken up. We're shattered. But somehow we still had that sense of togetherness. Somehow we were fused there. And I had to make sure that we kept that, and that we wouldn't lose that. We were never really say goodbye to somebody. The love that we have for them, the legacies that they leave behind, that stays with us. And sometimes death just comes out of nowhere and it slaps you in the face. And unfortunately, you have to really just accept it, go through with it. And then I guarantee you, as time goes by, it does get better, because those tears that you have, the sadness that you feel, eventually that same memory, that same smell, that same song, that's going to come back, and you're actually going to feel comfort, and it's actually going to bring a smile to your face. Eventually. You just have to hold on. And it's the smiles and the comfort later that brings you up to where it is. Every day is a new opportunity for a new beginning. It's also a new opportunity for hope.
My life was forever changed when my dad died, but I'll never have him there for my graduations, for my wedding, to see me be a dad. But I know he's still there, and I know he's still a part of me. Every time I shoot an arrow, I can feel his presence, and I'd like to think that he's holding me and my mom from afar and grinning at us. We changed the name to the Worldwide Dragon Shooting Day because it's become that large, and the bowstring is connecting me and my dad, and archery is our lifeline. And I know that even one arrow can make a difference, and the impact of one arrow can be everything. Just as I know the impact of the Dragon Slayer kits that we made can make a huge difference to other kids that are like me. No one should ever feel alone, especially in these times. And I know that it's a little hard to connect to people, but do whatever you can. Remember to say I love you to that person that you care about before you leave them and before you go to bed, because you never know when it's the last time you'll see them. Thanks for listening to our story.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you guys, thank you so much. I'm obviously really touched. I'm so thankful for your storytelling, but also I'm thankful for the work you do in the world. It is not a small thing to start a 501c3 and to help so many other people deal with the dragons in their lives. So, Dorothy and Wyatt, thank you so much for your story, but mostly thank you for caring so much about other people.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Truly, and Dorothy and Wyatt, your story contained so many tips, lessons, reassurances, and pieces of really practical advice that people can think about. And I want to take just a moment and say, we know that so many Americans are experiencing loss of all kinds right now, but particularly the loss of loved ones. And your thoughtfulness to include so many specific pieces of advice and things to consider around the loss of a loved one is really helpful, and it's really powerful storytelling. So thank you.
Thank you. And if anybody needs help, reach out to us at www.worldwidedragonshootingday.com.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, let's just take a deep breath. This is live storytelling, right? There's lots of feelings, and this is why you tuned in, I hope. So our next story is going to be super different. It's going to have like a totally different tone from a person across the country with a really different story about new beginnings. And so with that, MJ, I welcome you up. Thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you, Dorothy and Wyatt and Maggie. Your stories are so beautiful and inspirational. Okay. When I was 2 years old, my family of 5, my 2 older sisters and me, and my parents, we immigrated from Seoul, Korea to Toronto, Canada. My mother dressed us in jean jackets and jean shorts with red berets. She was a fashionista and she wanted us to look good. It's October, and unfortunately, the day that we landed was one of the coldest days in Toronto's history. The 3 girls, aged 2, 3, and 5, are huddled together at Pearson International Airport, waiting for my father's older brother, Samchun, to pick us up. And when he does, he takes us to this small house that smells of mothballs. And my father takes out this photo and he says to his brother, and the photo is of my uncle standing in front of a mansion. Where is this other house of yours, this bigger house? My aunt, my uncle's wife, Emo, she laughs and says, surely you didn't think that was our house. My husband's just a gardener. My father's brother had written that he owned a gardening supply store. And so it turned out that the joke was on my parents. My father was a bank manager in Seoul, Korea, and he thought he had a job waiting for him. Unfortunately, a subordinate of his, someone who worked under him, had just taken that job, and there was no need for another Korean language bank worker at this branch. And when my father went to other businesses to get a job, he was told his Korean university education wasn't valid in Canada. If he wanted to get a decent paying job, he had to start all over again. And with the family of 3 girls, all under the age of 5 and under, that wasn't a possibility. Plus, he was sending money back home to his parents in Seoul. So he started doing anything he could. He worked as a room service waiter at nighttime, a court translator during the day, and in the wee hours as a worm picker. It took him 3 months of very hard work to save for first and last month's rent. And I went with my father to see this huge 3-bedroom apartment in the Jane and St. Clair area of Toronto, which is a place now and then known for an area for newcomers. And my father, I see him going through all the rooms and amazed at this huge place that was available for below market value. He immediately signs a lease, and on the day that we move in, my mother is so happy, and she looks around and tells us where she's going to place the chungs, the black lacquered furniture with pearl inlay that she's going to get delivered from Seoul, Korea, where we used to live, and this will be a part of our home now. We only have 2 mattresses to sleep in as furniture that night. 1 mattress for the 3 girls and 1 mattress for my parents. And we turn off the light dreaming of our new home in Toronto, just ours. And then we realize why this apartment was below market value. We hear so many rodents scurrying around on the floor. And my sisters and I run to my parents' mattress and we lay with my mother as my father, he crouches by the mattress and he has his shoes and he bangs them ferociously, trying to hurt as many mice as possible. This banging is him banging his frustration, his anger, his resentment, everything that he's been feeling for the past 3 months. Luckily, my sisters get to go to school. And my mother, she tries to make the best of it by bringing me out into the playground. And there's pictures of me with like light blue fluffy hat and gloves and scarves, like bundled up on the swing. And I'm freezing. And my mother must have been freezing too. She just wanted us out of that apartment. So one day, while we're getting ready to go out to the playground, I pick up my little shoe, and I'm 3 by then, and I see these 3 little baby mice, like cuddled together. They look just like me and my sisters, and my mother sees it, and she passes out. It's a little too much for her. She ends up laying in bed for the rest of that day, and I wake her to let her know that we need to pick up my sisters. She does, and there's something different about her from that day on. She just lays in bed from now on while my sisters go to school, and I stay home alone, kind of dreaming about my life in Seoul with my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and my cousins. A year later, my father, he works so hard that he saves enough for a down payment for a condominium, and we move a few blocks away near Jane and Eglinton, still the newcomers area. And I get to go to school. I go to Our Lady of Victory School, and my teachers, I love them. They understand me. I'm the shy little person who just loves to play by herself. And my favorite teacher is Miss Bologna. She's my second grade teacher, and she lets me stay inside during recess and lunchtime, and she lets me help grade the papers and everything. She understands me. And when I notice, there are 2 times I noticed that she made some mistakes in her marking, I point them out to her, and she says, it's not a big deal. One day, she stands in front of the classroom and remarks that there is a school-wide speech writing competition. And as she passes out the blank pieces of paper, she says to me, Myungjin, I think you can do it. You can win this. I look at this blank piece of paper. I don't know how to write a speech. And when the school bell rings, I fold it up and put it in my back pocket. And that night, when I come home, I ask my sisters, how do you write a speech? And they tell me, just write it like you're writing a story. So I write my story, my life as a cookie. It's about how I'm made, baked, and when I come out of the oven, the baker takes one look at me, picks me up, and says, you're perfect. And she gobbles me whole, not even chewing or biting or anything, just swallows me up. And then I die. And I am at the gates of heaven. I was religious then. And I see God, and God says to me, you're perfect. So months after I hand in my assignment, I hear an announcement that the winner of the school-wide speech competition is Myungjin. And the prize is she gets to say the speech in front of the entire school at the next assembly. So I go home that night and I'm really upset because that's not what I want. And my sisters, they tell me, don't worry, we'll be standing up front with you. And if you forget your words or you get too scared to continue, we'll read the speech for you. The day of the assembly, I asked Miss Bologna if I could please go to the bathroom, but she doesn't hear me because I realize I barely speak above a whisper. And when my name is called up, I want to hide. I don't want anyone to see me. And I'm sitting crisscross applesauce. And my friend Luigi, he smiles at me and he says, you can do it, Myungjin. And so I walk up and I look around to see if I could find my sisters, and I don't see them. And now I'm standing in front of the entire school. And I take out my speech. My Life as a Cookie, room 206 by Myungjin. And then I'm told to speak louder and into the mic. And so I do so. But I look up and I see Valencio. He's another friend of mine. He gives me his thumbs up. So I begin. My life as a cookie. And I hear laughter. And it feels good. And when I finish my speech, there's applause. And Miss Bologna, she's looking at me so proudly. And I feel great. People understand me. I feel heard. I feel appreciated. I feel understood. And that was the beginning of when I decided I could maybe write. And so I do. I end up writing 8 plays that get professionally produced. I start acting on stage. I act across America and the United States, and I even get to be on a television show in Canada. So last year, I asked my parents, they now live in long-term care, and I said, do you regret coming to Canada? And they said to me, no, because you and your sisters have done well. And we have done well. I'm married, I live in Venice, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I have a cat who brings in mice, and my daughter, she loves feeding those mice. Thank you very much.
MJ, thank you so much for your story and your sense of humor. I love when you hear people's origin stories as writers, and yours is without a doubt I mean, well, it's incredibly sweet and it's really thoughtful, but mostly I want to say thank you so much for making your story about like moving all the way across the world so funny, so relatable, so understandable. And my heart just broke when you talked about the little mice like all together.
They were adorable.
I was like, no.
Yeah, but I am terrified of mice still.
Ladies and gentlemen, MJ, no, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Awesome. MJ, thank you so much for your story. I really, really appreciate you sharing your time and your talent with us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to tell it.
Yeah. Well, now we are going to pivot to a totally different part of the country and a really different kind of story. So many of our new beginnings have been about big things that happen. And our next storyteller, Sue, is going to talk to us a little bit more about something that happened that felt small at the time and led to big things later. Your name is Amy, and I called you Sue, and I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's the 3 letters.
I apologize. Please take it away, Amy. I'm sorry.
So when my 15-year marriage ended almost 10 years ago, I decided to dive headfirst into the online dating world. I tried them all. OkCupid, Match, Tinder, you name it. And they all pretty much had the same result: frustration. My friends at the time who were coupled liked to say things to me like, someone's going to come along when you least expect it. Or you're going to know the right person when he comes along. Super annoying. If any of you have tried online dating, then you probably know that it is not for the faint of heart. It was exciting at first, and it could be fun. I mean, who doesn't like to look at dead fish, dead animals, bare torsos in the bathroom mirror? But it could also be demoralizing. Along the way, I was stood up, ghosted, told that I was too reserved, not athletic enough, that my hair was too short. Usually I would go on 1, maybe 2 dates, but it really never quite went anywhere. One of my dating lows was going on a second date with a guy who had invited me over for dinner. I don't think I even really had that great of a time the first date, but it seemed like a nice thing to do to make me dinner. So on my way over to his house, he texted me and asked me to stop at the liquor store to pick up his favorite type of whiskey. When I got there, I discovered that his favorite type of whiskey cost $50. But I figured he was going to pay me back. So I picked it up, went to his house, and when I got there, I discovered that he had another bottle of his favorite whiskey on the counter open, and he didn't drink either one of them. So apparently he just really wanted somebody to buy him a free bottle of whiskey. He proceeded to open up a can of Dinty Moore stew, pour it into a pan, and feed it to me and call that making me dinner. Now, I'm sure he meant well, and he's probably a good guy. And honestly, I met some nice guys along the way, and I even made some long-term friendships. But I got really tired of it. My attitude started to stink, so I decided to give it a rest. After many years of being on online dating sites, I decided to live my life as if the right person would not come along. I bought new furniture for my apartment for the first time as a single person. I threw a lot of my energy into social and racial justice issues in my community. I spent more time at my church, my Unitarian church that I'd belonged to for a number of years. And I started feeling pretty good about myself. Except there was one area of my life that was feeling out of control, and that was my drinking. My 1 or 2 glasses of wine a night had started to turn into 3 or 4. Out of loneliness, discouragement, boredom, my drinking escalated, and eventually I was drinking a bottle or more a night. Each morning started to feel like Groundhog Day. I would say, today's the day I'm not going to drink too much, or I'm going to stop myself at 1. But by 6 o'clock in the evening, my car would inevitably turn into a liquor store parking lot or grocery store. I started Googling, do I have a drinking problem? I mean, my drinking looked a lot like the people around me. I live in Wisconsin after all, and we are the binge drinking state. But I knew it was a problem because I didn't feel good about myself. I felt ashamed. And eventually I went to my therapist, and he recommended that I go and get evaluated at a treatment center. I did that, and they diagnosed me with having alcohol use disorder, severe. And if that wasn't sobering enough, they recommended that I detox inpatient because I might have withdrawal symptoms, and they didn't want me to experience that at home. So 2 days later, without telling a soul, except for my 2 teenage sons who found out by accident, and my dear friend Sarah, who's my emergency contact, I checked myself into that hospital. The first thing they did was take away my phone, which I had not anticipated, and I was very attached to. They strip searched me and took away most of my clothing, cut all the strings out of my pants so that I wouldn't try to hurt myself. They put me in a very stark room all by myself. There was no door in the bathroom, and I probably felt the most alone I'd ever felt in my whole life. And outside my door, it was chaos. There were people from all walks of life. Some looked like they'd lived there for months. Some looked like they'd been ripped from a trauma. I didn't want to interact with people, but eventually I did. And I met a small group of women that I ate meals with. One woman in particular was especially lovely, and the room lit up when she came into it. She was only 2 or 3 years older than I was, but she had just come off a 3-year prison stint. She had been imprisoned for her 5th DUI and was pretty traumatized by it. She felt like her life was over. She didn't feel that she could ever get another job. She certainly wasn't going to drive again. She had moved home with her mother and was financially dependent on her. I looked at her and thought, that could be me. And so that, coupled with 3 weeks of outpatient treatment, where I learned about the effects of alcohol on a person's body, mind, and spirit, I came to the conclusion that I was never going to be able to drink again. And that was really hard because I liked to drink. But it turns out that quitting was the easy part. What was hard was learning to live sober. I became emotionally flooded after I quit drinking. All the things that I had numbed down by drinking, anxiety. I would cry at the drop of a hat. I didn't handle conflict very easily in the beginning, and in fact had a conflict with a very dear friend, and that friendship ended. And then an entire group of friends disappeared. I felt like I wasn't being invited to events with my girlfriends anymore. And frankly, I didn't really want to be part of social gatherings where there was drinking because it just was tempting in the beginning, and then I just didn't feel all that comfortable. So my social life started to tank. When that happened, I turned more and more to my church community. I became involved in some small groups, one in particular that is part of Parker Palmer's Circle of Trust, if you've heard of him. And in these groups, we did a lot of deep listening, and we shared our experiences with one another. I eventually opened up slowly to the people in those groups. And as I shared my pain and the joys in my life, and they shared theirs, I started to experience, for probably the first time in my life, what true belonging felt like. I also applied to be a worship associate at my church. And part of that role is to tell a personal story of transformation during a church service. Since that time, I have told over 6 transformational stories at my church. So take that, guys that told me I was too reserved. It took a while, but I started to get used to my life without drinking and began to realize that really alcohol had been a mask for me, a mask that was hiding my authentic self. As I became more comfortable, I even decided to quit dyeing my hair because that started feeling like just another mask to me. And it was something, honestly, that I felt like I had to keep doing when I was dating online, because once I turned 50, it seemed like interest was waning, and it had been. So I'm not going to say that life has been easier without alcohol. I mean, let me just drop a few words for you. Pandemic, social and racial justice, uprising, menopause. But the highs are higher and the lows are not as low. All the things that I thought alcohol was doing for me was really making it worse. Now I get to walk around in the world being my authentic self. I have more confidence physically and emotionally. I'm healthier. I have more authentic connection with people. And I even fell in love. So it turns out that someone did come along when I was least expecting it. But the person that came along when I was least expecting it was me. Thank you.
Amy, thank you so much. Sorry again I called you Sue, given the irony of your story being about the fact that you were the person that showed up.
It's okay.
I appreciate it. Amy, thank you so much for also being so relatable. It is so powerful to hear stories about sober choices, but it's also really powerful, I think, to hear a woman say that you don't have to change yourself to meet the right person. That's not how life goes. If any of you, Amy and I were bonding over this, if anybody has like well-meaning advice, they should hold on to it and not share it. Because nobody's advice was how you met your partner, right?
Well, except for maybe, isn't there somebody nice at church? Because I did meet him at church. So.
Literally the oldest one in the book. Okay.
Exactly.
I take it back. Awesome. Amy, thank you so much for your story tonight.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Literally, you guys, you know this, the oldest one in the book, right? You'll meet him at a coffee shop. Isn't there someone nice at church? I stand corrected. Amy and I were joking because I met my partner on the internet. We're going to close our show out with Abu from Lafayette, who said immediately after telling this story, if anybody wants to come down south, right? You said, les bon temps roulés?
Yes, bon temps roulés.
That's right. Awesome. Abu, take it away. We are excited to hear how you ended up in Lafayette and how that was your new beginning.
Thank you, Megan. Good evening, everyone. I'm John. I know I don't look like one, but this tells me this is also my name, so is John. I came to USA in 2008 with 2 luggage bags and 2 of my names. It's my first time in an airplane. I was coming from Bangladesh, and I was shaking just like I am right now in the immigration office with my passport. And I remember the officer looked at me and took my passport and said, "Your name." Till this day, I don't know what happened. When I said Abu Rahat Chowdhury, he said, "What?" And I just told him, "Call me John." The part that I come from subcontinent, we usually have 2 names. One is for official, the other one is all by family, neighbors, and your close friends. And John was one. That's how I started with my journey with my 2 names in JFK in New York. And it made it to Lafayette, Louisiana. And thankfully, both of my names got approved. So a little bit of background I want to tell, like when I said I came from Bangladesh, or also known as Bengal, that's the land of tiger. And I moved to Louisiana, and that's also tiger land. Thanks to LSU Tigers, it's all over you go. You see that yellow and black stripes everywhere. And you also see some cage tigers. The part that I'm from, we have the wild ones. And we wear a mask behind our head whenever we go to forest, because You never know when they're gonna come and get you. Population-wise, Bengal and Louisiana, it's very apart. Even though they have the same land size, kind of similar, the Louisiana population is 4 million, whereas in Bangladesh we have around 160 million, like the half of the United States population. One of the reasons I immigrated is, of course, the security, the lifestyle, freedom of speech, choices, religious like choices also, no arranged marriage for me, and of course higher education. That's one of the reasons I actually was in Louisiana. When I say life security, I remember me and my brothers would go in the morning to the school, and my mom would come and tell us a small prayer, because in her mind she doesn't know whether she will see us in the evening. So it's kind of like a small goodbye every morning. But that's how I started my American dream. My knowledge came from Hollywood movies, all those blockbusters, the comedy shows such as Friends, Domino's Pizza, KFC. Those were there in Bangladesh, and I used to like them. And also a game of Monopoly. I remember one of my American friend came from Pennsylvania, and he came with a game called Monopoly, and it was really fascinating to see that game that early age. I remember also that it was around 9 o'clock. The game was very tight and everything, and I just got the grasp of the game, but I had to tell, like, hey, I need to go home. My dad gonna punish me. And I remember my new American friend, he was like, come on, the punishment is fine. I asked him, what kind of punishment you get in USA? And he said, I get to send to my room. And my question to him was, you have a room? And, that's my understanding of US culture, getting to know from different people, the TV shows and the movies. And fast forward to my first day in JFK, I went to see the subway, and my American dream came to reality. And I saw the mice in the subways, the homeless people, the fast-paced life. People actually don't have much time for you. And lucky for me that I was not able to see a lot of those fast life as I moved to Orlando, where my family was. And I started to see some of the pictures that I saw in movies with beautiful Disney's and Universal, and beautiful blue waters, the white sands. The Florida was really great, some good people and community. But for some reason, I couldn't find my rhythm. And I couldn't find for a couple of years, until one of my dream for higher studies came true. And I moved to Louisiana. I got a scholarship in the University of Louisiana Lafayette, and I got to study computer science. And I remember one of my first day, I was next to the cafeteria. There was a swamp, and I was not expecting any tigers, but there were alligators. And I don't know what happened in the PA system. They started to say, like, hey, the alligator is out. You guys be careful near the cafeteria. And right away I say, all right, I'm in the right place. A lot of action here. And yeah, and in few months' time, I got to see Mardi Gras. I remember all the festivities. And one of the best thing was this baby Jesus. It came in this beautiful, colorful cake. And the baby Jesus is hidden inside. And the fun part is whoever gets the baby Jesus throw a party next week. And it's really, really great time. And I remember all these floaties roaming around the streets. There are beads and goodies and different kind of lights, and you jump and you grab them, and it's always good time roll. And it's not only Mardi Gras, there is festival all the time. There's food, music. There's a sense of community over here, and I always I always enjoyed it very much. Not to mention, I got to meet so many great people. I remember one of my first time I came, I didn't know anyone, and this campus student organization called Chi Alpha, they helped me and took me to Walmart and say like, hey, what do you need? Not, there is all kind of great people I met just roaming around the campus and downtown area. I met these people who said, hey, I have a crawfish boil tomorrow in my backyard. You want to come? I just got to know him. It's the warmth. It's really good. The backyard parties, it's not only for crawfish, the 4th of July or any other gathering which is happening, it's always there. And you get invited, even though you might be new to them. It's just all of a sudden, from a high five guy, I became the person with hug. It's really amazing. One of my fondest memories came from a Christmas party. And I remember I wear this Santa hat, and the family gave me so amazing surprises, different gifts. They gave me these gloves to open up the gifts and everything, and it was just amazing to see the family got bonded through this Christmas party. And in terms of the food time, during the turkey, Ronnie, he came with the host of the family. God bless him. He's in heaven now. He came with this chainsaw and he tried to cut the turkey. I was like, wow, this was amazing. Like, the Southern hospitality was at its best. And I really appreciate all the people who showed me love in this small city. Of course, all the good times rolls in. There's also bad times, because this is Louisiana. There's flood is all the time. It's over here. And I see that in 2016, there was a big flood in Acadian area. And for 3 days it rained. And there was a depression in the Gulf of Mexico. And because of that, the water came up very much. And once the rain stopped, I walked towards this shelter and I asked. It was like 8:30 in the morning. I'd say, like, hey, I'm here to volunteer. If you guys need anything, just let me know. And they said, we just post a Facebook message asking from community to get us help. Go to the back and try to pick up the stuff that people send us. So I went to the back and there was a small warehouse. It was still big. Actually, it's not small. It was really big. It became small in a matter of 3 hours because people were coming all over with so many stuffs, with foods, and it was crazy. Like, within 3 hours, we had to put a message, hey, stop bringing stuffs. It was just amazing to see how the community actually works towards each other. They take care of each other. And I seen it just last year during the pandemic. We had hurricane, 2 back-to-back in our area. And the food drives, the people went there to fix houses. I went with so many people I see, they just want to fix the houses and help the fellow Louisiana people. And even though it was a difficult time, but we were all happy. We were listening music, we were dancing while we are working, and it was just these festivities. It's really good thing to see how community come together. And I'm really appreciative of this Cajun culture. To me, I feel there are 4 pillars. Or like 4 legs, like a comfy chair. I would say the first thing is the food. And of course, Louisiana, the Southern Louisiana, it has it. You talk about jambalaya. I just talked about king cake, the spicy boudin, the hot sauce, the Tabasco factory. It is really awesome. The food is amazing. Not to mention, the second one is the music. You have this amusing festival culture, and it's all free. You can go and enjoy music whenever you want. It's all available. You just go there. They're playing this fiddle, the Cajun music, the Zydeco, where you dance at the same time with you eating food and drinking. It's really awesome. Not to mention the people over here. That's the third third leg or the pillar for my comfy chair. My school was amazing. I got to meet so many various department and the professors, the networking group that I met through downtown, and some leadership institution over here. My employers, I work in a tech company, and some of the international people I met, we call it Crew with K. It's like Crew the Kanai. We have the Mardi Gras reference. It's called Crew. And the fourth one is the laughter. I think I got back my real smile. I never laughed so much almost every day, even though this is pandemic happening right now. But every day, whenever I see my neighbors, I'll just go to downtown to pick up something. I met people and they just make me happy. They're just full of life. There's a community bond over here, and people just want to share with you their fun time. And that's definitely something I did not see. I've been to 44 different states and hundreds of cities in United States. And I have to say that I brought two names here when I came to Louisiana in the beginning. And I got a gumbo of life and laughter in return. And in some way, Lafayette chose me and both of my names. And I'm happy to be part of this Cajun culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abu, John. We so appreciate your story. And I just hope so many people who love the Deep South, who love Lafayette, who love New Orleans, so like people who have a passion, yes, for their cruise and their Mardi Gras are watching right now, because I know they see themselves reflected in your story. I also appreciate that you spelled crew, Krewe,
Yes.
so that we knew.
Come visit Louisiana. I tell you, you're going to have a good time no matter what.
Awesome. Well, Abu, thank you so much for your story and your sense of humor. We wish we could visit. But soon we will.
I hope
I'll try. Awesome. With that, it is my heart's joy to welcome up all of our storytellers so that we can thank you all so much. Dorothy and Wyatt, Amy, MJ. And then we're going to bring up Maggie. Hopefully, there she is. I was like, oh, she's still here. Thank you so much for sharing your stories about fresh starts, new beginnings, and like big ideas to start our year. I really appreciate all of you. And now I would like to thank you, our viewers. Thanks for joining us again here in 2021. It's really a joy to get our season started off tonight. Stay with us. We have about 44 or more shows coming your way this year. All kinds of topics, all kinds of storytellers from coast to coast. If you've been inspired, we are booking storytellers right now. You can reach out to us on our website, storytellersproject.com. We're currently booking storytellers. So if you're interested in sharing your stories, we're interested in hearing from you. Have a great night, and thank you so much.